27 Jan 2025, DeepSeek surpassed ChatGPT as the most downloaded free app on iOS App Store in USA, which caused Nvidia's share price to drop by 18%. In the today's world of AI, where new technology always takes over the old ones, with the launch of DeepSeek, the question comes to many people's mind, is it better than ChatGPT? So in this session, let's try to understand the basic models of DeepSeek, and we'll also try to understand the basic differences between DeepSeek and ChatGPT, and probably let's try to understand and answer this question. So let's first try to see what is DeepSeek. So DeepSeek is a Chinese AI company that builds open source large language models, or commonly called as LLMs. So DeepSeek models are basically developed as a family of RL. It's a family of RL. RL stands for Reinforcement Learning Driven AI Models. Now the next question is, what is LLM? So LLM stands for Large Language Models. In simple words, language model is designed to predict the next most suitable word to fill in a blank space in a sentence or a phrase. So you might have come across LLMs many times, like in the form of Siri, Alexa, or Google Assistant. In fact, LLMs are designed based on the artificial neural network, and most of these large language models are actually based on the transformer based models. Now suppose I type here, I am going to, in my phone. My phone might next predict the answer as store, park, or office. So these are some common words that comes after going in everyday language. So this is an example of a language model. So basically LLM is a language model. It is a type of machine learning model which is trained on a large data set of text and uses advanced neural architectures. And it generates or predicts human-like text. Now DeepSeek, why is an LLM model? Now the next question is, what makes DeepSeek unique as compared to other LLM models? There were LLM models before, and DeepSeek is developed on LLM models, and what makes it different? The simple answer is, it works as a chain of thought process. DeepSeek works as a chain of thought process. If you have run the DeepSeek model in your phone or your system, you might have observed that when you give a query, the model actually spends considerable time thinking. This thinking time can be in seconds or in minutes. So during this thinking time, the model is actually performing a step-by-step analysis through a process which is called as chain of thought process. So this is one of the unique features of DeepSeek. Another unique feature of DeepSeek is it is trained on both Chinese and English data. So this makes it a true multilingual AI model. And specifically, it is better for Chinese people. And the third most important difference is, unlike OpenAI or others, DeepSeek actually makes its algorithms, models, and training details open source. It means that anyone can view its codes, design document, and use the code and even modify it freely. So these are the major differences between DeepSeek as compared to the other LLM models. Now, DeepSeek model is something now which has become popular from end of Jan to most of the people, but this is not something really new. The company actually started working a year back, and there are many versions of DeepSeek. So let's just dive into the different DeepSeek models. The first model that was actually developed, that was released, was DeepSeek Coder. It was released in November 2023. DeepSeek Coder, it's one of the AI models by DeepSeek which was focused on writing codes. It is available for free, and it is pre-trained on parameter size of 1.3 billion to 33 billion parameters. It has more than 80 programming languages, and it supports all important programming languages like Python, Java, C++, .NET, etc. So it is even claimed that it is better than GPT-4 and Llama in generating the codes. The next came DeepSeek V1. V1 stands for version 1. Now this model has a parameter size of 67 billion models and was released in Jan 2024. Now this is based on traditional transformer architecture with the feed-forward neural network. Now this is good for organizations and researchers. Next came DeepSeek version 2, which was trained on parameter size of 236 billion, and it is based on MOE, just like the CODA, that is a mixture of experts model. We'll see what is MOE later. So this was based on mixture of experts model architecture, and this was released in June 2024 and is also good for organization and researchers. The next came the version V3, which is having a parameter size of 671 billion, and not every parameter will be activated. So that's the main point of MOE, that's a mixture of experts model. Only the sub networks which are required for a specialized task will be activated. So in version V3, out of 671 billion, 37 billion tokens will be actually activated in the architecture, and this architecture is actually based on reinforcement learning, and it was released in December 2024, so quite recent, and it's good for mathematics, reasoning, and multilingual. It is multilingual. Next came the R versions. Next came DeepSeek R10 and then DeepSeek R1. Now R stands for reasoning, so that means R10 and R1 are actually the first generation reasoning models. Now these two are the reasoning models. So R10 was trained on 671 billion parameters, whereas R1 was trained using anywhere between 1.5 billion to 70 billion parameters. Now both of these R10 and R1 are reasoning models, and they are also using based on reinforcement learning. But the only difference is DeepSeek R1 also uses supervised fine-tuning. There was some fine-tuning that was required to be done on R10, and therefore the next version R1 was developed with supervised fine-tuning over it. So all these models are actually built on one another, like V2 was built over V1, V3 was built over V2, the same way R10 and then R1 was actually built over R10. Now the main problem when it comes to DeepSeek R10 was it encountered a lot of challenges like endless repetitions, poor readability, and language mixing. So R1 was developed, DeepSeek R1 was developed over R10, which basically had better performance as compared to R10, and even has better performance compared to OpenAI O1 across math, code, and other reasoning tasks. So if you see, the next question that was very common is, now why DeepSeek is so famous as compared to ChatGPT is because of its low cost, right? So how did DeepSeek operate at such low cost as compared to ChatGPT's? Now the main reason is because of its architecture. As mentioned before, DeepSeek architecture is based upon reinforcement learning and mixture of experts architecture. Reinforcement learning, because reinforcement learning means the model thinks on its own. You do not give any labeled or you do not any kind of labeled data. You allow the model to think on its own, and that is one of the reasons that it operates on a low cost, and also because it's a mixture of experts model. Now what is mixture of experts architecture is, here the model will be divided into many subnetworks, which we call it as an expert, and each subnetwork will be specialized in one task. So the model activates only the network which is needed for a given task, and therefore it can operate at lower cost as compared to other OpenAI models. So let's now try to understand what's the difference between DeepSeek and ChatGPT, and what are the strengths and weaknesses of both of these models. Now in simple terms that we need to summarize is, DeepSeek uses reinforcement learning, wherein you let the model think on its own, and it also uses mixture of experts, which is computationally less resource intensive to train, and the model will activate only the network which is needed for a given task. Whereas ChatGPT actually uses a traditional transformer model. Okay, ChatGPT actually uses a traditional transformer model, which is like having all the experts working on every task, and therefore they are more consistent but potentially less efficient, and computationally the resources are very extensive. Now, the other differences are ChatGPT is primarily designed for conversational applications, and therefore it's very widely used. As we already know, many of us are actually aware of ChatGPT, where it is very conversational. But DeepSeek is mainly capable of providing responses as compared to other language models like GPT. ChatGPT is based on narrow AI, task-specific intelligence, whereas DeepSeek is based on AGI model, that is artificial general intelligence. And as I already told you, ChatGPT is based on traditional transformer model, whereas DeepSeek is based on mixture of experts approach. And language support is one of the major differences. As I already told you, DeepSeek has a strong focus on Chinese language and culture, whereas ChatGPT has a global focus, right? It's widely used across the world and supports multiple languages. Now, coming to the strengths of ChatGPT, ChatGPT is widely used, right? And almost every professional in the world is using ChatGPT. Whereas DeepSeek is tailored to process specific data sets for specific industries. And the second strength of ChatGPT is OpenAI is a very robust ecosystem, right? And it includes a lot of APIs, plugins, and therefore it has partnership with major tech companies, even like Microsoft. Whereas DeepSeek is a strong contender in the Chinese market. ChatGPT has already become a brand. It has a strong brand recognition, and DeepSeek is something new that we need to watch out for. And ChatGPT has already established itself with large active developer community. Now DeepSeek is also aiming, right, has made itself open source and therefore aiming to make a good large active developer community. Now the other differences is ChatGPT will offers a lot of features for free, but still some of the subscriptions, some of them require advanced capabilities require subscription. Whereas DeepSeek is completely open source, it's freely available and can be modified by the community, which is one of the major differences. The customization and ease of use is also an important point. ChatGPT user friendly, whereas DeepSeek has extensive customization options. However, it requires some kind of technical expertise. The development approach in ChatGPT, it needs substantial computational resources. This is one of the major differences, right? So ChatGPT requires extensive computational resources, whereas DeepSeek is built using innovative training methods, and therefore it requires less powerful hardware. Coming to the training cost, ChatGPT is actually built on OpenAI's GPT-F0 framework, requiring massive computational resources, estimated up to $100 million plus training cost. Whereas DeepSeek is trained in 55 days on 2048 NVIDIA H800 GPUs at just a cost of $5.5 million, which is less than 1/10 of the ChatGPT's expenses. And coming to the parameter size, ChatGPT is a monolithic architecture with 1.8 trillion parameters being used, whereas DeepSeek just uses 671 billion parameters. Out of it, only 37 billion have been activated, and therefore it is computationally very efficient. So when I gave the question ChatGPT versus DeepSeek, which is better, this is the response which I got from ChatGPT, and this is the response I got from DeepSeek. So ChatGPT says that for conversations and creative tasks, ChatGPT is likely the better choice. But for deep data searches or tasks which requires niche analysis, DeepSeek might be more suitable. And the response from DeepSeek is ultimately the better option depends on your specific use case. You might even find value in using both for different tasks. So with this, I would like to conclude that Both are very competitive, and let's see how uh, both ChatGPT and DeepSeek works in the future. Thank you so much.